I'm joined today by Paulo Horta, who is an expert on the Arabian Nights. He's an assistant professor of literature at NYU Abu Dhabi, where he teaches world literature, in particular the Arabian Nights, to an international student body. He was born in Budapest and grew up in Brazil and really all over the world as a child of diplomats. He spent significant time in Canada, where he studied, got his PhD, and also founded a world literature program at Simon Fraser University before he joined the faculty of NYU Abu Dhabi, where he's completing a book on the role of translators and their collaborators in generating new stories and adding new stories to an existing body of tales that we know as the 1001 Nights. So Paulo, in this course, we take Goethe's conception of world literature as our starting point and organizing principle, and we follow Goethe to the various areas of the world in which he was interested. Now, one area was the Near East, and 1001 Nights was one of the texts that was important for him, for his conception of literature, for his own work as a writer. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, Goethe had read the Arabian Nights by the age of 10, and he came back to it repeatedly for the course of his career and his life. He writes in many letters to Schiller and to other writers about the 1001 Nights, in fact even comparing himself to Scheherazade. He'll say, "I'm sorry I stopped at the 13th story like Scheherazade in medias res," or he'll say, "I'm slipping something in an embedded tale in the manner of Scheherazade." In another letter he writes, "Like the Sultana Scheherazade, I'm writing a fairy tale in this manner." So it obviously had a deep, lasting impression, and stories of his childhood indicate it might have even influenced the way he conceived of narrative and suspense.
Do we know how he first came across 1001 Nights, Goethe?
Well, quite likely before the age of 10. There's a wonderful story from a family friend named Bettina, who corresponded with Goethe and with his mother. And she preserves the story of Goethe's mother telling him bedtime stories, often Arabian Nights stories. And these stories would be suspended, of course, in the manner of Scheherazade and at a cliffhanger. And Goethe's mother was very adamant that she wanted to continue the stories in the way that he would guess them, in the way that he would like them to continue. So she'd be telling a story, and he'd interrupt her and say, "Mama, you're not telling me that this woman is going to marry the tailor after he slays the monster?" And so the next day she would like to come back and be able to say, no, of course, that was not going to happen. And what actually seems to have happened is Goethe would go off to his grandmother during the day and tell her how he imagined the story should continue. And by this sort of unspoken act of diplomacy, this sort of clandestine correspondence, the grandmother would tell Goethe's mother, and so the next night she continued the story in precisely the manner he had envisioned. She would write Bettina, you could see his heart beating and palpitating underneath his collar, and his excitement that he had correctly guessed the way that the story would go.
Goethe became a kind of co-author of the Arabian Nights, so he contributed something. He changed the narrative, he changed the stories to suit his own imagination.
Yes, and perhaps it's tempting to see foreshadowings of the East-West divan of many years later, and his improvisational manner and ability to not just translate, but to write, inspired by Hafez and other writers.